Hey there friends, word of warning that any of you who share this video, if you've got any liberal friends or far left leaning friends, you're probably going to hurt their feelings and you're going to get some blowback because we're going to drop truth bombs like we're bombing Hiroshima. You guys know the story that I talked about a couple days ago where the gender pretender stabbed 4 girls aged 9 to 17 in an AMC movie house, theater, whatever you want to call it. Then went on to stab 2 other people at a McDonald's. Come to find out, this same person is now wanted and more than likely is the person who did it, but they're a suspect right now of a murder in Connecticut on Saturday. It's funny how so much of the stuff that the media and the leftists celebrate, they ain't celebrating right now. This is a trans activist. This person who is a boy, they do have junk in the front, they identify as a she on Instagram, and obviously you've seen the pictures. He is trying to look like a she, although failing horribly bad at it. So the media ain't celebrating this one. This is not one that the media wants to celebrate. They ain't claiming this one. Remember Dave Chappelle when they had the, was it the race draft where black people were giving up people like O.J. Simpson and drafting other people?
And welcome to the first and maybe only racial draft here in New York City. We keep Eminem, you get O.J. Simpson.
Looks like the left is trying to trade off this gender pretender right here. They don't want this one, but this is yours. And it looks like your chicken has come home to roost.
We begin with those new details from that killing in Deep River with a connection to West Hartford. It happened over the weekend on Maritone Lane. The suspect, 26-year-old Jared Ravizza, is now linked by police to a stabbing spree in Massachusetts.
Newsay's Eva Zamaris joins us live from Deep River with more. Eva.
Good evening to you, Dennis and Ann. What unfolded here and in Massachusetts has just rattled this community. Investigators continue to piece together what happened. Inside a Massachusetts courtroom on Tuesday.
On the Commonwealth versus Jared Ravizza.
Jared Ravizza appeared emotionless before a judge. It's believed the 26-year-old carried out an hours-long crime spree over the weekend, starting in Connecticut and ending in Massachusetts.
He is also sought in connection with a homicide investigation in Connecticut.
Connecticut State Police say they were first called to a home on Marywold Lane in Deep River Saturday afternoon, where Ravizza allegedly threw a shovel through the front door window pane and left. A disturbance was also reported at a nearby home on Maritone Lane. When the investigating trooper arrived, Connecticut State Police say they found 70-year-old Bruce Feldman of West Hartford outside with visible injuries.
We're in shock. And then now you look back, you're like, wow, I'm glad we're okay.
Connecticut State Police believe Ravizza stabbed Feldman to death, telling News 8 the pair had been staying at the home together.
We just met the folks that came into town. I mean, it's a quiet town. This has never happened here.
This prompted a large police presence in the neighborhood and search for the suspect and Porsche Ravizza was in.
They said, is that the car? I'm like, yes, it is.
It's then alleged by authorities in Massachusetts. He went on to stab 4 girls at a movie theater in Braintree before stabbing 2 employees at a McDonald's in Plymouth.
The defendant lunged out the window of his vehicle and stabbed the male employee in the forearm with what appeared to be a long kitchen knife. He then parked his vehicle, entered the store, and proceeded behind the counter where he stabbed a female employee in the back of her upper left arm.
All 6 victims were being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. As for Ravizza, he was arrested.
A female employee in the back of her upper left arm.
All 6 victims were being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. As for Ravizza, he was arrested in Sandwich following a police pursuit and crash. He's facing a number of charges stemming from the incidents in Massachusetts, including assault with attempt to murder. The charges in Connecticut are pending. A mental health evaluation was ordered, and Ravizza will undergo further evaluation at a Massachusetts hospital.
He is evidencing signs and symptoms of an active psychotic illness.
According to documents obtained by News 8, Ravizza was recently arrested in mid-April for allegedly assaulting his father on Martha's Vineyard.
Just yesterday, the suspect Ravizza was appointed a lawyer who asked for a mental health evaluation. The judge agreed to that before deciding on a prosecution's motion that Ravizza be held without bail. Now, this gender pretender has a history of violence. This is not the only thing, and we'll get back to this this stabbing spree, if you will, here in a second. But clearly this person, according to the DSM-5, has gender dysphoria. It's in here. It's bookmarked in there. It is a treatable mental illness that people are perpetuating and allowing to get worse rather than providing help. But this person clearly had problems. In fact, Ravizza, who remains in custody and will be arraigned in Massachusetts today, was previously arrested in April of this year and charged with assault and battery as well as vandalism after he, get this, attacked his father. His father, who's a psychologist, I guess he would know, with more than 35 years experience, told officers that Ravizza, quote, had just had a mental break and attacked him, unquote, in his home. The 26-year-old's neighbors allege that Ravizza is a, quote, weirdo, that's not very fair, and was very close with his father. Now back to the murder, it has now emerged that Ravizza may have carried out an attack in rural Connecticut before he carried out his attacks in Massachusetts on Saturday. Connecticut State Police were called to a residence in Deep River just after 3:30 p.m. When they arrived on scene, troopers discovered the body of a dead man. Neighbors told Boston 25 that the victim, who has not yet been named, and the suspect, that's Ravizza, had both been short-term renters at the Deep River property. They alleged the pair had been, quote, living together for 2.5 weeks, had dogs, and were heard arguing a few days prior. I'm wondering if the argument wasn't centered around Ravizza's backside hurting a little bit, as he was clearly trying to identify as a woman in this relationship and didn't have the adequate parts to function as a woman with his boyfriend. One of the biggest problems that I have with this whole story is the fact that the media is just acting like this is not one of their people. They're just acting like this is just another person. If this had been a person utilizing a firearm to kill somebody in Connecticut, go to Massachusetts, shoot 4 people, and then shoot 2 other people a little bit later on, the entire country would be standing at attention looking at the TV as press conference after press conference after press conference were being held to talk about, quote, gun violence. We have the same, in some cases, less victims than in a lot of these, quote, shootings that you guys have out there. And nobody seems all the much concerned. It's like, stabbings don't bother us. Again, this is going back to proof that the actual lives don't matter. What matters is what can we get traction on, and a knife stabbing, murder, attack clearly doesn't have the same kind of traction in the media that one that involves a gun does. And a lot of that has to do with the politicians who are getting very well funded and very well paid by the anti-gun movement. There's a lot of money tied up in there. They're not mobilizing themselves. So checks aren't being written to politicians right now, so politicians don't care. And nobody's signing up to Everytown for Crazy Moms because a gun wasn't involved. So there's no transfer of money right now, so why bother, right? It's not, I mean, people are probably glazing over it on TV, so even on people on TV, the news agencies, they've stopped reporting on this. One of the biggest dangers in this, not just the fact that everybody's ignoring this and acting like it didn't happen, but the biggest danger that I see is, I go back to the normalization part of this. I've talked at length in my videos about how we're normalizing mental illness, that if we're really being honest about trying to help people, we should be seeking help for these people rather than selling bumper stickers and t-shirts celebrating their mental illness. The thing that I see a lot of, think about how the FBI, the ATF, politicians, Joe Biden, they all want to label us, if we're normal people, and I say normal, I use that as a very broad generic term because what's really normal, right? There's things I do that people will not think are normal. But what I mean by that is, if there's more of a certain group of people, that seems to be normal, right? I mean, not saying from a judgment standpoint, you can tell what's normal, but let's just say if you have vast numbers that are out there, that usually means normal, right? At least by the definition and by society and things like that. Me being a somewhat middle-of-the-road normal male, I'm white, I'm Christian. Again, I am a man. I'm not pretending to be. I really am. I'm really a guy. These people are being emboldened to pretend that there's something they're not. With the, again, as I stated earlier, the Biden administration, the FBI, the ATF, wanting to label us as domestic terrorists because we're white, we're gun owners, and we're Christians, at what point, since we're allowing these people, and in some case law is going to protect the pretending of people being a gender that they are not, so at what point do those people begin to pretend that we are something that we're not? You hear me? We're already normalizing the fact that they can pretend that there's something that we all know, including those leftists, we all know that they are not physically that person, that thing that they pretend to be. At what point does that same type of thought go into you identifying what other people are? This guy right here is trying to identify as a woman. What if he identified these 4 girls in this movie theater as terrorists? Maybe he did. They did order a psych eval for him, and they do say that he's delusional. We knew that, right? He's a gender pretender. He's delusional. He thinks he's something that he's not. But how do we know that he did not see these 4 young girls in this movie theater and go, those right there are the white supremacists and the domestic terrorists that Joe Biden was telling me about? And now he identifies somebody else as somebody who needs to be taken out. Sounds like a stretch? It's no more of a stretch than somebody pretending to be something that they are not. What's the difference? What's the difference in them pretending that they are something? I pretend I'm a puppy dog. I'm clearly not, but I pretend that I am. What's the difference in somebody pretending that this body is something different than what it is, and then pretending that that body is something that it's actually not? That's the danger in all of this. Again, if we're going to start passing laws to protect people pretending to be something that they are not, at what point do we acknowledge and really give them justification to attack people that they think are something else that they are not? And then guess what? Then they get just like this gender pretender right here. They get caught, they get locked up, and suddenly now we determine that they have a mental disorder, right? All along, nobody wanted to acknowledge it. But in their defense, they're going to get a psych evaluation, and now this guy is likely going to get off because now they acknowledge that there's something wrong up here. So until they actually commit a crime, it's okay. But once they commit a crime, oh, they have gender dysphoria. That's the danger we have. We cannot create these massive gray areas and allow whatever you want to exist in those gray areas. In these cases, it has to be treated the same. Either this person has a mental problem now and after they committed a crime, or they don't. We cannot pick and choose the time frame of when we want to label somebody just so they can get out of trouble. Suddenly, now they have dysphoria.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
He's so horrible.